What makes me a good
YouTuber?
If I were a bad
YouTuber.
I wouldn't be sitting here discussing it with you now, would I?
Before getting into the GOATS guide, I, as usual, want to thank the immense support on this channel. I'll be splitting up the video into 7 main sections. The first 6 are based upon each hero or role in GOATS, and the 7th section will be looking on the macro side of GOATS. Contrary to what this comment says, I'll only be using my voice for the last section of this guide. I also recommend you check out the hero guide playlist to learn the tech and usage of your character. Without further ado, I'll be starting off with Reinhardt.
So I had actually directly messaged a main tank streamer Octotroth, who some of you may know from my previous Sigma guide, on what the biggest problem Reinhardts have in GOATS. His response was shield management, alongside tracking the opposing Reinhardt shatter, which, looking over past ranked games, seemed to be the case. As you can see here, my Reinhardt, before even engaging into the actual team fight within his effective range, has already lost half his shield, which snowballs into him being unable to block the opposing Reinhardt shatter, which makes us lose this team fight. He does this yet again by pushing past the Orisa shield with only 300 shield left, which yet again allows their Reinhardt to land a free shatter in the last team fight. Instead, our Reinhardt should have utilized the extra 10 to 15 seconds he had to regain his shield before we engaged, since there was no rush to push in, as we wouldn't have a second team fight due to the time bank. I do however want to give my Reinhardt some props, as even though his defensive play is lacking, his aggressive play is very clean, as he manages to hit a shatter against a double shield GOATS comp. A few reasons why this lands is mainly due to the Zarya wasting both her bubbles and the Sigma wasting his accretion, meaning that the shatter is highly likely to land, as there is no reliable form of CC or ability to block shatter. Considering Octo's latter statement in terms of tracking the opposing Reinhardt shatter, it is extremely difficult to track an ultimate that has a very inconsistent charge rate. Hence, keeping subconscious notes of when their Reinhardt swings multiple enemies on your team, and when their Reinhardt swings into their grav, will be vital in dictating whether the Reinhardt has shatter or not. A minor thing would be Reinhardt's flooding the mic too much.
You're going to give up the space on the actual mic for people like Speedily, Janitor, Bird, to give you information which you can add to your own information and come up with a better plan.
Another thing to note is that you can heavily counter the combo of Grav D.Va Bomb by landing shatter as soon as you are in Grav.
Another insane play by Chensik. They go for a combo and he shatters the team and the D.Va Bomb. So the only thing they can possibly do to beat our comp, Chensik just single-handedly stopped.
Target priority and shatter is also vital. In this clip here, my Reinhardt shatters the Brig, Ana, and Zarya, but has no clear target, due to the shatter stun nerf from a few months ago. Squishy, vulnerable targets such as the Brig should be your focus. Not to mention that my Reinhardt almost got counter-shattered due to tunnel vision. Simple tips such as fire striking when the opposing D.Va matrix is down, alongside swinging when you are bubbled, also apply, although I will get into much more complex concepts in latter sections of this video, as well as the 7th section as well. On to the second part of the guide, Zarya. Starting with simple tips. Firstly, beam down the opposing D.Va who may be playing off angles to gain easy ult charge. Grav on payload or on corners to prevent the opposing D.Va from eating your grav. Right click at the end and start of your primary fire for added burst damage, and occasionally utilize your bubble to block shatter when your Reinhardt has died.
Hey, Shatter, I'm blocking with self-bubble. I'm blocking with self-bubble.
Now on to 4 more complex concepts. Firstly, at the end of each one team fight, push up to the opposing team's spawn for 4 main reasons, as Kurashud describes here.
Push up when they're spawning, and then they'll kite their way back to spawn, right? So that way you can get a bubble rotation off, and you can keep high energy, and then you can go ahead and farm grav a lot faster.
Secondly, when you have energy as Zarya, you want to bubble second.
So if you bubble first, your Reinhardt will push in, and then their Reinhardt will get bubbled and it'll push out. So the motion looks like that. But in the other way, if you allow them to bubble first, and you force their Reinhardt to attack you, then when you bubble here and your Reinhardt pushes back, you can chase farther without overextending. Bait them in, let them use projected first, then counter push with your own projected, especially if you're at high energy.
Thirdly, learn when to grab when you are playing on defense.
Meters on the payload, time on the clock, and ult charge. Those are the 3 main resources that win fights. So if you grab Dragon right off the bat, you got very, very little time off the clock. If you kill all 6 of them with Grab Dragon, then you don't get any reward in ult charge, so it's definitely not number 1. Is it 2 or is it 3? So do you use it as soon as you engage, or do you use it as late as possible? Now, there's a couple different thoughts here. If you're actually tracking ultimates and the opponent has their own combo, then you want to grab before they can ult you. Because if they dismantle your win condition with ultimates, then you're and your ability to actually grab dragon doesn't work anymore. But in general, if you are in a position of advantage, for example, if you're on control and you own the point, the answer is going to be wanting to fight as late as possible to make sure that you get most value out of your one team fights.
Fourthly, use bubble to save the lives of your teammates rather than farming energy. For example, you need to save both bubbles when the opposing GOAT's team have grabbed D.Va bomb as their win condition, or some other threatening ultimate. Look at this Zarya from the same game prior but on the enemy team. She has wasted both her bubbles only to gain pointless energy, and as a result, we managed to pull off grab D.Va bomb successfully, which ends up killing the Brigitte, who could have been saved if Zarya had saved her bubbles. On to the third hero, D.Va. D.Va is perhaps the most versatile hero in GOATs with many adoptable playstyles. One is more of a defensive D.Va, by utilizing defense matrix to block vital cooldowns such as Orisa's halt, Una's nade and sleep, and occasional spam damage. You can also try to eat grav, although I will get into this in the final section of the video. A more aggressive D.Va would be playing on perches, off angles, high ground, or flanks to direct attention away from the front line, and expend cooldowns from the enemy team, which is surprisingly viable even in a 6v6 scrim, as the Dogman experienced.
Hanamura's second point, setting up these flanks where he's pretty much completely on his own, but he requires so much attention and like so many different cooldowns were expended on him that he got quite a lot of value even though he wasn't really doing damage or preventing a lot of damage with the defense matrix. Just his existence there and being the ever-present threat or distraction got a lot of value.
Lastly, if you're not running Sombra GOATs, you will be the hero scouting the enemy team to catch out any rotations, and to allow your team to rotate early if needed. A great example of this would be positioning yourself on the top middle window on Buse and Mika base to see if the enemy team are faking a rotation or not. Onto the fourth hero, Lucio. Lucio is arguably one of the key heroes in GOATs whilst simultaneously being the hero that will detract the least value from your team if you die. Speed amp is obviously the ability that provides the most value to your team. You only want to amp healing if the majority of your teammates are critical, which should help you build sound barrier very quickly in order to swing the fight. You want to be saving your amp speed in order to take advantage of wasted cooldowns, with the two main ones being Zarya bubble and Brig's bash. If you see that Brig use her bash aggressively, you need to amp speed in order to overrun her before she gets back to safety. And if there's Zarya wastes projected bubble on her Reinhardt, amping speed on your Reinhardt who should have his own bubble will swiftly kill their Reinhardt, as Zarya bubble acts as an extra life for a target. Other than that, wall ride at a height above 2 meters to avoid being shattered in order to land your sound barrier.
Because Slime is wall riding at all times, he's amazing at this, he doesn't get hit by the shatter and is able to land his own sound barrier, saving his team from death.
And utilize your boop to split up the opposing team, especially on maps such as Hanamura Point B defense, where you can boop enemies into the pit.
When they're trying to come out of coast, they can get booped into the pit, and you speed on whatever is like left on top, right? So if they try to go back to rejoin their front line who got booped into pit, they're closest to your entire team, so most likely they'll die. The whole strategy is for your D.Va/Lucio to go ahead and boop them off. Whatever's left on top.
Because if you drop on the people who are in the pit, you're in the same position that you
they can just fall on top of us.
Yeah.
On to the fifth hero, Brigitte. Firstly, abuse your third-person view when holding up your shield.
We were doing a lot of things where we didn't know where to hold, where we'd be sitting on point, or then we just go to high ground, but you really need to take advantage of being able to third-person with Brig to know where they're pathing from, so then you can meet them there.
Secondly, only use whip shot to kite from danger.
If their Brigitte and their Reinhardt are trying to like chase you down, then for sure use your whip shot. But when you're trying to be aggressive, use of the whip shot after your combo is actually making it hard for you and your Reinhardt to follow up. You're knocking them back to safety.
Thirdly, try and trigger Inspire as early as possible. The two main methods are using your whip shot on a D.Va who may be playing an off angle, or the more risky option of using your primary fire on the opposing Reinhardt, and shield bashing away. Lastly, you want to keep track of your Brig counterpart in order to win the duel. Here's Jane explaining 3 ways to kill the enemy Brig.
Is if they Brig stun aggressively first and don't get value out of it, you, by recognizing that and calling your team to engage on her, can very easily destroy that Brigitte. The second way you can win it is as if Bird helps you out with the actual Discord call. So if you get Harmony and the opposing Brigitte has Discord, you can very easily force that 1v1 because you have the orbs. And the third way that you can use it is by using Rally and just like forcing it, because it will also give you the speed in order to kind of stay on that Brigitte and just bash the shit out of them.
You want to primarily use your repair packs on your Reinhardt.
Stop using your repair packs on anything that is not Matman. Even if D.Va gets to like 200 HP, Janitor can sit behind the Reinhardt shield and slowly get healed up by the AoE. Repair packs need to be going on to the Reinhardt as well, because if the Reinhardt dies because you used your healing pack to get D.Va from like 200 to 300 health or whatever, then the D.Va is very quickly going to die anyway.
In terms of your rally, there isn't much extra that I haven't included in my Brigitte guide. However, I would urge more on the side of using it in the mid-fight for added sustain, or to force out powerful ultimates such as Grav early on in the fight. Onto the final hero, Zenyatta. In terms of harmony and discord, you always want to have them on both Reinhardts respectively unless your Brig requests the orbs to take a duel against the opposing Brig, linking to the previous concept of speeding onto a Reinhardt with no bubble. You need to first place your discord on that Reinhardt as it cannot be cleansed. You also want to avoid stacking support ultimates, in which the Dogman fell victim to in one of their scrims. Generally speaking, you want to use beat aggressively and use trans defensively, as your Reinhardt can tone his aggression according to how quickly he is losing the temporary shields. Finally, you want to be positioning yourself in such a way where you have line of sight between both Reinhardts, but not line of sight between the opposing backline. This is so that their Rein has to push into line of sight of the Zen discord, whilst not taking any spam damage from the opposing Lucio or Zen as they don't have loss.
Since we're the attacking team, their Rein has to push out. Your Zen can see their Rein and their Zen can't see your Rein. You have the advantage there too, right? And then they're forced to use friendly if they want to take the discord off as well.
I'll get into this more in the next few minutes as I move on to the final section of this video.
Let's start off with the most basic combo that you can pull off, Grav D.Va Bomb. There are 4 elements that you need to be able to pull this off. Firstly, a Zarya projector bubble. Secondly, Reinhardt's pin. Thirdly, wasted Zarya bubbles by the enemy team. And finally, the Grav and D.Va bombs themselves. In order to pull this off, follow these general 5 steps as a rule of thumb. Firstly, wait for the Zarya to use both of her bubbles. Secondly, wait for their D.Va to use her defense matrix so your Grav doesn't get eaten. Thirdly, throw Grav after their D.Va uses her matrix. Fourthly, throw in D.Va bomb with your boosters so that it has LOS with the Grav itself. And finally, let your Reinhardt pin the opposing Reinhardt and Grav and bubble him with Zarya's projector bubble so that the pin doesn't get interrupted. Secondly, you need to know how to improvise in the middle of your game. For example, in this teamfight here, the enemy team have both got Flux and Grav, but we have no defensive ultimate. So I made the call out for my D.Va to play with me on high ground to avoid being caught in the Grav, and used our D.Va bomb to counter and zone the follow-up from Zarya's Grav, which worked pretty successfully, killing half their team. Of course, my D.Va could have eaten their Grav, although this is much less reliable, as I thought she could still eat it from that range. But unfortunately, the D.Va was just a few milliseconds off, as well as slightly out of range, which can be fixed with hindsight. Thirdly, you want to be pathing from high ground when you are on the retake. Examples would be the stairwells on Ilios Lighthouse and Busan Downtown.
On retakes, you always have to path on top left window on downtown, because when you go from high ground, they're forced to give you the space, right? And then when you're going from high ground as well, you can go ahead and see if they have Brig hiding or Zarya hiding, and then you can go ahead and call it out that way, right?
Fourthly, you want to be applying objective pressure when you have less resources to act as a soft reset and to not force you to engage on the enemy team.
The biggest problem that you guys have is like where you're taking the fights and where you're moving during a fight. In the very first fight in the courtyard on Hanamura A, we pushed through pretty dramatically, and then we ended up in a fight on the courtyard, and they tried to back out through arches. If you have a kill, if you have 2 kills, if you have the advantage in resources, feel free to push that extremely decisively. But if you ever get into this situation where you need to stabilize or soft reset, what you can do is you can take that fight to the point, which then gives you both objective pressure and corner advantage.
Alright, so this is going to be the last bit of the guide. Since I don't want this video to be over 15 minutes long, I'm going to blitz through this quite quickly. I'm essentially just going over a team fight that we had running Moira Sombra Goats against Zen Goats. And obviously you can see the key here in case you need it. So one of the downsides of running Sombra Moira Goats is that we have basically no damage. So if their Zarya or Reinhardt plays them to point, we can't really punish them that harshly because there's no Discord Orb. However, one of the strengths of running Moira is how fast you can charge Coalescence with 3 tanks, and that comes into play with Coalescence, and I'll talk about that later. For now, I just want to refer back to the Jane thing about objective pressure and how we're applying that right now. Since we have no damage, we really do not want to force the engage. And essentially what we want is their Reinhardt to step onto point and take damage from multiple lines of sight. However, what we don't want is our Reinhardt turning this corner and getting decimated by Zen Goats. And I'm putting on the screen right now a little cubbyhole on Busan Downtown, where our Reinhardt can essentially hide here in the corner. One of the reasons that this spot is so advantageous is because their Reinhardt is forced to turn this corner and forced to use projector bubble to get any damage onto our Reinhardt, and we still apply objective pressure anyway. Another strength is that their Zen has to play a really wide angle to get line of sight between both our Reinhardts if a Reinhardt is playing such a shallow and deep angle. Instead of utilizing this cubby hole, what a Reinhardt does is play this semi-wide angle, which if you can see, the wider the angle that you take, or the better the line of sight that their Zen has between his own Reinhardt and our Reinhardt, while still being safe from line of sight between our backline. Onto the last two things, my job with Coalescence is to simply deter the Zen from peeking this corner, potentially force out some ultimates as well, like Transcendence if I get enough damage on, and the last thing I want to cover is our Sombra not utilizing high ground. By using this piece of high ground, you can expend cooldowns from the Zenyatta and the D.Va by using our boosters, our defense matrix, and even Discord, and you can also punish and gain ult charge from this Reinhardt wanting to force onto the point to try and contest it so he doesn't give the point up for free. Well, that's it for the guide, and if you enjoyed, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like, and if this video helped to raise your IQ, don't forget to share it with your friends to also raise theirs. Until next time.
You, big boy with that big broom, big boy how I come through, big boy with that brand new, cause I'm killing it.